Welcome back, everybody. In this video, I'm going to show you how I made this 3-building complex. As always, my projects start off with mock-ups. I use mock-ups to position them on the railroad to see how I like them, what the sight lines are, does it block anything. I start the project with the staircase. Here you see a small container that I am now putting in pieces for the stairs. You'll see the stairs in the background there. And I'm shaking it with the stones in it, but that was a little too rough, so I'm using aluminum foil in the shape of a ball to put texture on these tile pieces that will go on the stairs. And I think the aluminum foil in this case was a better idea. Here I'm test fitting the staircase and noticing that I need a threshold. So here I'm now gluing a small piece of foam on top of my foam stairs. Little by little, I am adding more and more pieces. Here I'm adding the tiles to the steps so that the steps all have individual tiles so that when I paint them, they look much more realistic. I'm adding 3 tiles at a time individually. Building the staircase out of foam is a very satisfying project. It's not very complicated, it's easy to do, and if you make a mistake, you have plenty of material to do it over. So here I am carefully measuring out the tiles and eventually adding, and by gluing each one using Elmer's glue. Here's the piece as it's taking shape and now fitted against the mock-up. What I didn't videotape was my making the bricks. I'll include a link in the video to show you how I make them in a separate video that I had made before. Here I am painting the bricks that I already had carved using a ballpoint pen, and I added some Durham's water putty, and here's the results. Next step was adding interior lights to the mock-up, and I'm using, as always, Just Plug light system by Woodland Scenics. This is the a little port sharing device, and I will add it, I will hot glue it to the back of the mock-up because since this building complex blocks the side of the tracks, I needed it to be removable. And you saw me drilling a hole to reach the ports for the Just Plug system below. And then this was a simple matter with the warm white light LEDs. You peel the back, you stick it to the foam core walls in a position where you want, and then you drag it to the port sharing device, and then that port sharing device is then linked to the bottom. Here is the mock-up all lit. Making doors in 1/24 scale is becoming one of my favorite aspects of the model making for my model railroad. Here I am taking some basswood and scribing some wood texture using a saw. This is an X-Acto saw, kind of a coarse grain. I am, lightly sanding the edges so to get all the fur off. Here I am. I assembled the wood pieces into what looks like the door, and I am now putting in the arch. And here I'm making some nail holes, some rot, so splitting the wood a little just to give it a nice bit of texture. I'm using some brown paint, water base, and I'm adding the paint in kind of a watery consistency because the next step is that I'm going to sand it to lighten it. Here's the sandpaper. It's a rough sandpaper. I'm going with the grain to lighten it to make it look kind of worn out, both by wear and tear and sunlight. Here I'm going with the grain of the boards that are vertical. It's very satisfying because the thing actually looks nice. Here I'm painting with some paint to simulate some mold, because this door is going to be near a canal. I'm adding some rubber cement. This is a technique I use often. I liberally add rubber cement, let it dry, and on top of the rubber cement, I will paint on it, and then later when it dries, I will peel the rubber cement off so it simulates paint chipping. Here I am hot gluing the door to the mock-up. Here's another door with a quickly made hinge door knocker. More more hot glue. I use the hot glue a lot because it's quick and easy. Although you get all of those little threads that you have to make sure that you pull off. And here it is, the two doors put in. Now I carved more stones, bricks, to the mock-up. Here I am carving the stones and painting the brick directly on the foam core without putting any texture on the foam core. I ended up regretting this. I left it, but I didn't like it. It didn't come out as well as I would expect. So the next building that you will see on the right does get some texture, and I will show you that in a minute. Here I'm adding some 3D printed windows with the acetate already in and toilet paper tissue soaked in white glue to make window curtains. Here is my mixture of Durham's water putty and some tile grout that is kind of a tan color here. And I add it using a little spatula. This is much more satisfying. I used a kind of a runny consistency like pancake butter, and it was a lot better. Well, the idea of these buildings is that they sit along a canal. So one of the things I wanted to do was to add some canal walls. And I'm using the foam core and a piece of foam insulation to create the canal wall. And of course, I'm using the hot glue to attach it. I rounded that little insulation piece so it looks like it's kind of rounded tile that's added. And here I am adding some simple gray paint and then some darker shade of gray at the bottom because to simulate the wetness. Eventually, this canal area will be filled with epoxy, but not for a couple videos from now. And here is the retaining wall. Next step is my tried and true roof tiles. I'll provide a link in the video to show you how I make these tile shingles in much more detail. One of the things I realized was the opening for the canal area at the front fascia was a little too narrow, and it made it look, the boat that you see there was overpowering it, so I wanted to open it up. So here I am using a saw to cut some of the fascia away. By the way, the boat that you see in the picture was made out of paper mostly. That was researched on Pinterest. It's supposed to carry cargo and freight along a canal. After a little vacuuming, I started painting it up, and here is the current results. We have come to the end of this video, and in part 2, I will add much more details to the facades, to the staircase area, and complete the roof. Join me for the next video. Thank you for visiting the little fishing village of Amalfitano. Please consider hitting the like button and subscribing. Until next time, arrivederci.